Hello and welcome back to The Road to Avengers Endgame. And no, I haven't had plastic surgery. This thing is all natural. And we're about to watch the first Captain America film, The First Avenger, which was released in 2011 and was the first one we saw in the cinema. Nice shiny steelbook. I don't even know what we thought about going into this film. I have no frame of reference or memory or recollection of what we thought going in to see this film at all.
No.
Whether we even knew if it was tied into Iron Man or not. I don't know, really.
I don't remember watching it in the cinema.
We did, because I fell asleep during the bit where Hugo Weaving becomes the Red Skull.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
You remember that?
I always remember you falling asleep because it annoys me so much.
It annoys you.
We go to the cinema and you're sleeping and I'm like, really?
That was probably back in the day when you'd drag me to the cinema before I started work, and I used to hate doing that. Anyway, so Captain America, the first Avenger. This goes back to is it World War One or World War Two? Because Wonder Woman is World War One. There's kind of like a difference there. Regardless, World War Two era set movie with Chris Evans playing the role of Steve Rogers, who would then go on to become Captain America, who's been a mainstay with the series, and been a lot of speculation over whether he's going to die in Endgame, and Chris Evans will retire the role. Regardless, we saw it in the cinema. I remember liking it. I think I saw it once more after that, and I really liked it again after having seen him in the Avengers and so on and so forth. But it's not a favourite. But I remember really liking it. So once,
I think Captain America is one of my least favourite Avengers.
Yeah, you're not very keen on him, are you?
No, I don't know why. I like the actor a lot. I just don't like Captain America, the character.
Why is that? Why don't you like it?
After Civil War, I think.
After Civil War?
I did not like it at all.
Because you're that much of a Tony Stark fangirl?
No, I'm not a fan of Tony Stark either.
Oh, okay.
I'm not an Iron Man fan. He's like one of my least favorites as well.
What?
Well, Hawkeye is like pretty much bottom, but yeah.
Who do you like?
I think I'm gonna like him in Endgame because he looks like, oh, my family dead. I'm gonna shave my head out. What? What? That's what it is. They've clearly died.
Who do you like? Who do you like?
I love Thor.
You love Thor?
Love Hulk. I really like Black Widow. Who else is there?
But you gotta admit, there's a lot more to most of the...
I like Loki a lot.
Loki, Okay, well, regardless, we're getting off topic now, so we're gonna watch the first half of the film, probably.
Spider-Man, I love Spider-Man.
Okay.
I didn't think I would.
I find it very bizarre that someone would love these movies and not like Captain America or Iron Man, because they're like the two biggest characters.
Too whiny with the Civil War. Oh, you this and you that. Oh, now we're gonna have a rivalry. It was just stupid.
Wow.
I didn't like that movie that much. It's probably one of my least favorites.
Wow, really did not like Civil War.
No, I told you that.
One of the best ones. So
maybe I like it better than this time.
Yeah, maybe revisiting them all will give you a different perspective on
Prepare
things.
for the stupidness.
Right, we're going to start now and probably finish it tomorrow or something like that, and then come back at the end with another clip talking probably very in-depth and rambly about Captain America, the First Avenger. It's been fun to see the Marvel logo evolve over the years. See, I'm just simply trying to film the title card for each film, and it's just like, films these days never just show you the title at the beginning. It's always like 3 minutes in or at the end.
It's like one of those TV shows where you have a little intro first and then...
Yeah, it's cold open in this case, literally. So, we are done with Captain America. We were done with Captain America like 2 nights ago. So...
But
But Connie had to sleep, so.
Yep,
2 days later, I woke up.
That is a running concurrent thing. Concurrent? Does that work? I don't know. Captain America, the first Avenger. I see what they did there.
Davram?
So, Davram? America, Captain.
Such an inside joke. No one's gonna get it.
What?
If you do, well done.
Yeah, if you get that Davram America reference, awesome. So, Captain America, the first Avenger. Chris Evans in the role of Steve Rogers, a Brooklyn kid who wants to get involved in the army during the Second World War. He wants to fight for his country. Very noble character, but he is a weedy little weakling. And so...
Weedy little weakling.
Yeah, a weedy little weakling. And he ends up enlisting anyway, because there is a certain, I don't know if you can call him a scientist, a doctor, played by Stanley Tucci, who kind of notices his Steve Rogers spark and kind of his character, and so he helps to kind of get him enlisted into the army, even though he has
genuine goodness.
His genuine goodness is a good way to put it. Even though Steve has a plethora of like medical issues, asthma, and all that kind of stuff that would usually mean he wouldn't be able to join the army.
And he's tiny.
And he's tiny, and we'll talk about that. But he ends up being put into a program where a special serum is injected into him that will make him stronger, will make everything good in him great, basically. And there's a great line, it's like this serum kind of takes things that are good and makes them great, but it can take bad things and make them worse. And he becomes big and muscly and Chris Evansy. And then it becomes Captain America. So for the first 20 minutes of the film, we have this CGI Chris Evans where he's made to look really skinny.
It doesn't look that bad for its time, does it?
It doesn't. It's done well, but I think that they went a bit too far. I think that he's a little bit too short, a little bit too thin. Like he looks, I don't know, he just looks like he has an actual condition, not like someone who is just thin and short. It just looks a bit too weird. Like there's a scene where he sat in the back of a car with what's her name, Carter, Peggy, and he just looks like a kid compared to her, and it's just weird. It's not the worst. I just think they just went a little bit too far with making him that small.
They just wanted a contrast, I guess.
They did want the contrast,
I'm
but
sure they tried different things, and
I'm
they're
sure
like,
they did, yeah.
it's not enough,
Perhaps, but I would have preferred it to be a little bit more subtle. And the visual effects are pretty good for their time, as you said, but there are these moments where like his chin is way too close to his lips. And I could tell there must have been different companies working on it.
His chin is a little bit close to his lip, though. After his transition,
but too
I was
much.
looking at it.
But too
I
much.
know. But it is a little close to his
lip. It is, sure.
He doesn't have the biggest chin in the world.
Sure, but it was inconsistent. But regardless, for its time, and even now, quite impressive. There's a pretty good job. And then obviously he becomes Chris Evans and, has pecs so large they could genuinely, pass his breasts. Just ridiculously ripped, which is, again, this is what these guys do when they do the superhero movies.
Get ripped, yeah.
I'm not sure if what's his name, Tom Holland, Spider-Man, had to do all that training and actually get a six-pack. But I think it would be weird to show a young kid like that. Well, he's not a young kid. He's kind of 18, 19, 20. Regardless.
He's not skinny, but compared to the rest, he's a tiny guy.
Yeah. Anyway, right, I don't know why I even thought about that. But I'm just thinking it seems like almost like, well, no, Robert Downey Jr. No, he never got ripped and never had to do a kind of shirtless scene where... You can tell what?
That he's not trying to get ripped for
the
movies.
I thought
especially in the first one, you're like...
Yeah. Okay.
You see him shirtless and you're thinking, okay, so he's the exception.
And even Mark Ruffalo, Hulk. So I guess it isn't really a rule. It's just actually just Thor and Captain America. Oh no, I think Star-Lord had a little bit of... Anyway, regardless, whole other train of thought. Captain America. What I loved about it is that he, the serum works on him, and there's a whole intrigue that goes back with these German officers and this kind of Nazi offshoot where Hugo Weaving's character, who I couldn't tell you the name of for the life of me, we watched it 2 nights ago. It's some kind of German name, Schmidt, I think actually, and he's doing his stuff. We're not going to go into all the details, if you've seen the film. But I love that Steve Rogers gets lumped in the role of basically a cheerleader. They're
Yeah.
like, because he, as soon as he becomes who he becomes, he chases this agent played by Richard Armitage, Thorin from the Hobbit movies, and chases him down and kind of captures him, but he ends up killing himself with a cyanide tooth, which for someone who's gone through a lot of tooth issues, that was a painful scene to watch when he just kind of cracks his own teeth out. Ugh. And so, he doesn't get the information that he wants. But regardless, it kind of goes, I was going to say viral. That's a stupid thing to say. It gets into the papers that there was this guy who saved the day. And so they dub him Captain America. They stick him in a stupid suit. And they parade him around all the cities and doing all this like Americana bullshit, we want you. And he becomes this mascot, basically. And I love that. It's a really fun montage as well. I think the way that they captured the period of the 1940s was great.
Yeah.
And what's his name? Tommy Lee Jones is really good as the kind of army officer who kind of...
He's got a very subtle role for his famous status.
For his famous status. Yeah, I suppose so. When you think about Tommy Lee Jones in a Marvel movie, he isn't in it that much, but he makes an impression. I think he did a really good job, as he mostly tends to do.
Yeah, but every time I see the movie, I'm like, oh, he's in it, so he's forgettable.
I wouldn't say that, no. When I think of the film, I do remember that he's in it and that he's a significant part of it. But
I always get surprised. I'm like, oh, right, he's in it every time.
That's fair enough, I suppose.
But he does great, but it's like, he must be forgettable for me then, since I forget that he's in it.
Yeah, it's a fair point, I guess.
I remember
if you
now,
do.
2 days later, which is
2 days later, yeah. I really like the score in this one. Again, like I was saying about Thor, this one has an identity to the score. And well, there's that song, but I mean the actual orchestral score, which I think is done really well. See, there we go. Yeah, I really like it, and it has that kind of the twinge of Americana and everything to it. The kind of
It is. Yeah.
But I think it's.
You see the flag when you hear the sound.
You see the flag. Yeah, you do see the flag when you hear the sound. Yeah.
Flag.
And you could look at this film as a very kind of almost like a propaganda film, and it actually goes into how Captain America does make literal propaganda films. But also, you might look at it and get a little bit sick of the whole, America is the greatest thing. But I think just in general, the kind of the hopeful spirit that Steve Rogers embodies in this kind of wartime situation can be applied to anyone, and I think it's a pretty positive character. I have very deep and conflicting feelings on war in general. But in the context of a film like this, I can kind of just go along with it and enjoy the kind of, the good guys fighting for the right cause and everything. And I think I really love Chris Evans' portrayal of Steve Rogers, because I don't think it's an easy character to play, because he is very one note. He is very much just, I'm the good guy, I do the good thing. Mm-hmm. He's always righteous, and whenever he comes up against adversity, he just faces it head on, And that scene when he hasn't become, the serum injected version of himself yet, he's still the little kind of weakling. He's in training in the army, and they throw a dummy grenade into the training grounds, and he runs and dives on top of it to save everyone else, which, he thought was a real grenade. Great character building moment there, where you really see how selfless he is. We also get introduced to Bucky, his kind of his friend from Brooklyn, who becomes.
I feel like he looks so different.
He does look so different. Well, it was many years ago, and he becomes a huge part of. I'm really looking forward to getting to the next one, because I really can't wait to talk about our experience watching The Winter Soldier in the cinema in New York, because that was great, and Bucky is a huge part of that. But regardless, it's cool to see him, in the context now of us having watched all the other ones where he becomes the Winter Soldier and is a much bigger part of the other movies than he is in this one. It's like, oh yeah, I kind of almost forgot he was in it. Hugo Weaving is. Oh, what did you say about him when we were watching it? You said something like it's like he's playing a character of himself, a caricature of himself.
No.
No?
I say he looks like a caricature of himself. He's got a very special face.
Okay, his face. Okay.
Yeah,
Not playing. Okay, yeah.
No.
But yeah, so he plays Red Skull, and that's an interesting look. I really like the look of it. I think that character could have done more, perhaps. His accent really reminded me of Werner Herzog, which kind of just kept throwing me out of the moment. Which is, he's a German filmmaker who is one of my.
He does a good job.
No, I suppose, yeah, but Werner Herzog, I'll always tell this story, is forever my hero for getting shot by an air rifle during an interview, and afterwards kind of peeling down his boxers, and you see kind of the blood and the little lump, and he's like, "You've just been shot," and he says, "It's not significant." Like, the fact that someone got shot during an interview and they're like, "It's not significant," and he means it as well. Anyway, I don't know, I'm going on the whole Werner Herzog thing, but Hugo Weaving reminded me of him. Overall thoughts on Captain America. I've kind of rambled quite a lot, and you've said very little. So your thoughts while you're scrolling through your phone.
Well, I can listen while I'm doing it, and I got kind of bored, so keeps me from yawning. And the first one is maybe one of my favorites. It's between this one and the next one, I guess.
Yeah.
The next one is interesting because it's got Fury and Black Widow in it.
You mean the Avengers?
No, the next Captain America.
Oh yeah, true. Yeah, okay, cool.
So I'm just comparing the two Captain America movies because Avengers isn't even comparable.
Mm-hmm.
And I like Captain America in this one, which is most important. I like his character in this one.
Yeah.
It's only after Civil War that I started disliking him.
That's so interesting. Okay, yeah.
I just, it's such a...
Well, we'll get to that when we get to it, I guess.
I guess.
Yeah,
Maybe I'll like it more because I think I've only seen it twice.
Yeah.
The first time I was just disappointed. They
Sure.
call it like Avengers 2.5 or something like that, and I was like, ooh, and then no. So, yeah, it's enjoyable. It's got a good story. It's solid. The villain is, to me, irrelevant, kind of. I understand why they keep him there, but the whole thing with the Tesseract.
Yeah, the Tesseract.
I think there's not enough focus on it because it's supposed to be the main focus, but for me, it's just the war. And Captain America, that's the focus, and then it's kind of like, well, we need a villain, so let's just pop this guy in there. I feel like that it's not that solid. But Captain America and him growing as the character he is very relevant.
I think for me the best part of Hugo Weaving's character is the opening scene in Norway. Like I really like that scene when he finds the Tesseract and that kind of the wall
and that
thing
makes it feel like it's going to be more about the Tesseract.
Yeah,
you see like there's bits and bobs and like okay, so you can make weapons from it or whatever, and you can pull the power from it. But I don't feel like there's enough focus on it. It doesn't feel like a crisis. I guess. I feel like it gets a little lost in there. There's more focus on the war.
Well, I think that's probably because like Captain America isn't aware of this Tesseract at all, from what I remember. It's more just about saving the men.
Yeah,
and then once they and then once they get there, it's like, oh, they have this really like high tech weaponry for like, you know, and I really like the design of the ship from the end. It's like it was almost like a not steampunk, but like it's almost futuristic, even though it's set in like.
It is very futuristic.
Do you know? I really love that, and like his car, like the supercharged car. So
it's very alien.
Yeah, but I really enjoyed the kind of the design. It felt like oddly fitting to the 1940s, even though it is kind of more futuristic. We get to see Howard Stark, Tony Stark's dad, who's actually a fairly big supporting character in the film.
Who looks a little bit like one of the main guys in Freaks and Geeks.
He isn't though, but yeah.
You know who I mean, right?
No, I don't. So
he's got a very face.
Okay, I don't know what that means. We're just gonna roll over that one. But I really liked Carter. You know, I thought she was a good. Well, you didn't because you were quite frustrated with how she was feeling.
Yeah, she's a bitch.
Dejected
she's
by
drama queen.
Drama queen. I love how
she was in a relationship with Stark, or she made it seem like she was, like, because Captain America thought they were, and she didn't deny it. And so when a different girl, he hasn't been with a girl his whole life, a blonde girl shows interest. If I was him, I would fucking go for it. just make out with a girl. She want, you know, and then she comes in, and she fucking shoots him.
I love that.
Oh my god!
I love that scene though. For any like person who's been like pissed off with someone who they like the ultimate is to just fire off a few rounds.
Obviously,
like,
I'd want to do that, but she has
Yeah.
no reason to do it because she's just like, oh well, you know, I haven't made it clear that I'm available, and he thinks that I'm in a relationship, but he better fucking wait for me anyway.
Yeah,
Like he's been cheating on her. But
I understand where you're coming from. I think you're overacting just a tiny bit, but I do understand it.
It's
but overall,
entertaining though. It fits in the movie.
Yes.
But that makes me dislike her
yeah, that's fair enough.
as a woman.
Yeah, but I really liked their romance because it ultimately never happens, and so there is something kind of like bittersweet about that thing, like the one that got away and everything, and so I like that they didn't have. Well, they did kiss, didn't they? Though they did kiss in the car, but it was one of those things where
I don't remember that.
yeah, just before he jumped onto the plane. But I just and they I love how they kept her character a part of the story just a little bit in the next few movies, because it would have been strange if they didn't, and just that kind of thread of where they wanted to go for a dance together and they never got to, and I think they kind of do some sort of dream sequence with that in one of the future movies. But I liked their romance quite a bit. Oh yeah, hallucination. I think it's in Age of Ultron, maybe.
It is.
Yeah, so that's pretty much it. I really like it. Wouldn't say it's one of my favorites, but that's not a bad thing. I love how different it is to all the other ones, and it's just a really solid film, and I really enjoyed revisiting it. So and finally the post-credit scene was actually just a scene from the Avengers.
Yes,
and also a mini trailer.
Yeah.
But it was like a trailer that doesn't feel like a Marvel trailer because we're so used to them being so epic now. And it was more of a just kind of like, it didn't make it feel like as big of a deal as you would expect. But it must have been actually a very early teaser trailer because like Captain America was 2011, so I don't think they'd even finished the proper full trailer yet. So regardless, that was our post-credit scene. And we kind of had like a mid-credit scene before the credits, which was like the film ends, which is a really cool ending. I really love the way they did it. And then there's another scene where he wakes up and, they've kind of put him in this fake 1940s room and he breaks out and runs out into Times Square, present day. Nick Fury turns up. Awesome scene. Really great. And lastly, I just really loved just seeing the Tesseract because that has become such an iconic object in these movies, even going to Captain Marvel, which we just watched like a couple of weeks ago, and the Tesseract is in that movie, and so it's easily, I would say, the most recognizable and focused on of all the Infinity Stones.
It's so funny how it's a Tesseract, like it's just a cube, but now we know what's inside of it,
and all the things that it has done in the world, and who it's given powers to, and who's
what
had
it's
it
gonna
and
contribute to.
Who I mean I just like that. I like kind of how that runs a thread through so many of the films, and even this one kind of touching on Thor a little bit at the beginning where they're talking about Yggdrasil and Odin's and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, so Captain America, the First Avenger, really good film. Oh, and I almost dropped the steelbook. Leave that one in for free. There we go. On with the end of Phase 1, which will be the Avengers.